365 Sports with CBS ESPN College Football Analyst. Weekly guest that we have, and Taylor McHargue joins us. Taylor, thank you very much for your time. We can discuss the transfer portal and the timelines and the comings and goings constantly, every day, every week, whatever. Your thoughts about where it is now, and do you think that they actually might ever gain some control over this, or is it too late?
I don't think it's too late. I think it's one of the few things in our sport where it seems like everybody involved is displeased with it. And so I think because of that, whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, all the way down to agents, this creates so much unnecessary work and unrest, and it's not good for the sport. And I think one of the things that I'm in favor of is limiting this to a one-time, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, one-time window, and it be in the spring, so that when you get on campus, you are there for a calendar year. And so it forces you to go through, obviously, a summer and fall, but you've got to be there through spring ball as well, because I think a lot of these situations, kids leave as soon as they are not named the starter. And I think it's impacting the game, not just from kids having to sit out and these guys like what we're seeing with Penn State, with Pribula, and sitting out and missing either a game or bowl season or certainly the playoff. But I think it's not allowing kids to get developed either. And you're missing these windows of potential growth, and things change. Injuries happen, even in spring ball. And I think no matter what, this has to get solved where we don't have these disasters like what's going on with Marshall right now, where they've got 25 plus guys that have opted out. Now they've got to back out of their bowl game, what should have been a really good bowl game. Sun Belt champ Marshall against the American Conference champ in Army. That should have been a fantastic game. Instead, Marshall's no longer playing because of the opt-outs, and those are the things that really damage our sport right now. And I think there is momentum to try and get this fixed. I think at some point they will get reins. The sport collectively will get some reins on what these portal windows look like.
Well, don't you think that part of that with revenue sharing can come with, hey, let's make these contracts April 1st to March 31st or something like that, as opposed to that way the window can genuinely open in spring?
There's no doubt. And NIL, as it's structured right now, since it's become legal, has been a total free-for-all because the money is raised and handled privately. It's separate from the school. These collectives are their own entity, separate from the university. And even if a head coach, what we've seen with like a Mike Norvell, if they donate some of their salary back to the university or to a collective, that's still being handled privately. And then it gets distributed to the quote unquote student athletes. You're exactly right. If this becomes a rev share model, the university has now a little more control over. It's a 1-year contract, your scholarship and your contract. And in order to keep the money or retain all of the money that whatever you've agreed to, you've got to be on campus for that calendar year. You can't leave during the bowl season, during the playoffs. But I think there's absolutely momentum across the board. The scholarship, these guys don't want to do that. They don't want to leave early in most cases. They're only doing it because there's only so many roster spots that are out there and so much money. And if you don't get out ahead of it, you risk losing out on a lot of money.
Taylor, a lot of guys moving around, a lot of guys still looking for their spots as well, but one player that we just talked about that's made a decision, and I don't know how out of nowhere it was because I wasn't closely tracking Colorado's early moves, but Kaiden Salter making the move from Liberty over to Colorado. They've obviously got Julian Lewis coming in, but you don't expect a freshman to just take the ball and roll with it necessarily right out of the gate. So what do you make of Salter and the fit there in Boulder?
Yeah, had Kaiden Salter once last year, a couple times this year with Liberty. Really dynamic player, really good, talented quarterback. I think he's going to benefit from being on a bigger stage. He deserves to be on a bigger stage. And it'll be curious because what he provided for Liberty is a different scheme than what a lot of Colorado right now is. Shedeur Sanders, pure drop back passing, making some plays happen off script, but there is not a lot of design quarterback run game in that offense. Kaiden Salter and what Liberty ran was like your modified triple option out of shotgun. It's a lot of zone read with option off of it. It is stretch zone where the quarterback is running vertically. Colorado doesn't run that right now. So it'll be interesting to see, do they adapt to him or does he have to adapt to their scheme? But he is a really good player. And I think, look, as we've seen, I'll use the example for you guys close to home. I mean, I thought DeQuan Finn was going to be a home run for Baylor. So you don't always know, even if it's a really good player at a different school, you never know what's going to end up happening once they transfer. But on paper, this should be good for Kaiden Salter and Colorado.
Is he somebody, and I'm asking this because I don't know, is he somebody that if he goes to Colorado and he improves on some things he needs to improve on, can he play at the next level with his body, style, and all that?
I think he could be a day 2, day 3 guy. I don't see him as a first round franchise pick. He doesn't have the body for it. He doesn't have the arm for it. But I do think he's a dynamic enough player that could he make a roster? Yeah, absolutely.
Who among the quarterbacks that's transferred so far do you think is the biggest home run?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know that there's been anybody that I think has been a home run. I don't think there's been anybody that I've seen so far where you say this is going to absolutely fix this program. And I think part of the reason for that is, I'll go back to the example with DeQuan Finn. We just don't know. There are guys that have big names that they land at their new spot and it doesn't work. DJ Uiagalelei was supposed to be that was going to be the guy for Florida State that kept them at national prominence, and look at how that turned out. I don't have an example of anybody that I have seen that's gone into the portal where you say that is going to be a difference maker, game changer for that program and elevate them in a way that like a Dylan Gabriel last year. I think that made a lot of sense. I thought he was run out of town in Oklahoma prematurely, and obviously Oklahoma paid for it. And now Dylan Gabriel's got a chance to be a top 5 pick with how he's played. So I don't see that type of impact for anybody that's been in the portal so far in this class.
Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry. No. How much fun was that game, UC Davis in South Dakota in the Dome?
Oh, man. So most of my time with ESPN in the postseason is these FCS playoffs, and then this weekend I've got the Division II National Championship. Those games are so fun because, you know, we get most of the season I spend with either the Big 12 or the Mountain West, and towards the end of the year, you get games where maybe it's teams that are fighting for a bowl, but you know, sometimes it's teams that they've sort of packed it in already. They know what they are, even if they're bowl eligible. They're hovering around 7-8 wins. Then you switch to the postseason, and the FCS games, man, it matters so much to these guys, and as it should, obviously. But getting to be in that part of the country with, you know, I've done a game at South Dakota State last year, South Dakota this year. That region just dominates the FCS level, and it went chalk 1 through 4. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, South Dakota, and Montana State that are now in the finals. And for D2, again, I've got their national championship this week. Ferris State and Valdosta State, 2 really good programs that play really good football. And there's a lot of Division I talent that's transferred down to that level. So I love doing these games. I think there's some of the most fun football that's out there, and really good competitive football and good coaches that it's fun to see. ESPN's really leaned in on, you know, this upcoming weekend. Both semifinals are on national television. Most of them were on national television for the quarterfinals. The Division II National Championship, that's on ESPN2. I think it's great that ESPN's leaning into these lower levels in a big way.
I know you said that there's not really that difference maker at quarterback, but I was curious your thoughts on John Mateer, and if you think there's a spot that makes the most sense. Obviously, Oklahoma seems to make sense for a lot of people with the Ben Arbuckle connection there, but there's the double whammy of what happened with Jake Dicker today. I mean, we're sitting here listening to this guy and kind of feeling sorry for him. And next
going
thing
to
you know,
Wake Forest.
Yeah, he's at Wake Forest now. So just your thoughts on Mateer, and I really just feel for Wazoo fans at this point, Taylor.
Yeah, I had them probably week 7 or 8 at San Diego State, and that was really when they were rolling. And they were, after that game, they busted into the top 25. And it was, you know, if you're outside looking in, I don't have a rooted interest in any of this, but for college football as a whole, that looked like a team that if you could keep that core group together, that becomes a dark horse next year to get into the college football playoff. And now the whole thing is looking like it's going to unravel. John Mateer is a really good player, a really dynamic athlete. Some of the ways that I would describe Kaiden Salter are similar to John Mateer. Really, really quick feet running the football and ability to make people miss. I think that was one of the things when we covered them that stood out was he could make you miss in a phone booth, a really strong player. It'll be interesting where he lands. I think for Oklahoma, I think he's somebody better than Jackson Arnold, should elevate that quarterback spot if he lands at Oklahoma. But Oklahoma, to me, has got too many other issues around them where, again, I go back to Dylan Gabriel with Oregon. That is a top-tier team that you plugged in Dylan Gabriel, and that elevated them to top-5 team. I don't think John Mateer is a good enough player by himself that he's going to get to Oklahoma, and now they're a national championship contender. I think they've got too many other issues around that spot.
Taylor, real quick, who's got the most pressure on this weekend in the playoff?
I think it's Texas. I think Texas, maybe seemingly limping to the finish line, 2 losses against Georgia, and their best win, I guess we would say, would be A&M. But I know that it's at least last I look, it's the biggest line for the opening weekend in terms of the point spread. But it would not stun me if Clemson went in, and if Cade Klubnik plays well, wouldn't altogether stun me if Clemson went in and won, because that's a team that's used to playing in big spots. And Texas still has not proven this year that they, when it matters most, that they can play well, and Quinn Ewers specifically can play well and eliminate some of the turnover issues. That's been huge for them. I think that game's going to be really interesting. And I know we talked about it last week, but I think Penn State just got an unbelievable draw because getting to host SMU, they should win that game. They should beat Boise State. And there is a very clear path to them getting to the semifinals.
Taylor, it's weird to say this, but have you filled out your bracket? Like, do you have a full, filled out, do you have your national champion?
I haven't even thought about it, honestly. I need to do it for hoops. I haven't been so caught up in talking about these first-round games, I haven't even done it.
Yeah, just curious. I mean, it just dawned on me of there's actually sort of with just 4 teams, it's very simple, but hey, you add 8 more in there, and kind of got a little mini bracket. It's just kind of fun to see everybody sort of filling theirs out, and I was just curious if you'd gone through it just yet. But, yeah, we'll obviously have a much clearer picture after this weekend.
Yeah, and these games, look, these first-round games, these home playoff games, I think are going to be incredible. I think the fact that we get an in-state game between Indiana and Notre Dame, no one would have ever believed that scenario was possible back in August. But that's what's been so fun about this season is you've had so many storylines that the Big 12, in y'all's backyard, that league, the top of that league in August from the coaches poll ended up at the bottom and vice versa. And Arizona State is in the college football playoff. There's so many, Boise State getting a bye in the first round. You can go in a million different directions. And I think this expanded playoff, in my opinion, I don't think there's any question that it's been healthy for the sport. And in a sport where the portal stuff is a disaster and it's a mess, but viewership is up across the board. And I think in large part it's because football is relevant in a lot of places at the end of the year that it typically is not. Arizona State being relevant in November, that is not usually the case. So this is, in my opinion, again, I'll say it again, no question this has been good for the sport, expanding it to 12 teams.
Taylor, thank you, buddy. And we're off all of next week, so enjoy some downtime. We'd love to keep you on at least through the championship week if that's okay.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, Merry Christmas to you guys.
You too.
I've got the Rate Bowl on radio after that, and then I'm done for the season, but would love to keep it going. Love coming on with you guys.
You too. We love having you. Taylor McHargue, CBS and ESPN college football analyst.